So I would like to ask you, why do you feel like that has been so important? Why create that? What was your reasoning behind it?
For a few different reasons. Like one of them is it is lonely, and you do start to feel bad about yourself and wonder if you're doing the right things or everything that you can. So creating a community of parents with similar struggles so that they can have each other to lean on. And it's also so we can provide more support to more people. So the community will have like an online library with resources, but also some like weekly meetings that people can come into and get support from our therapists and also from other parents.
This is Secrets for Success.
Welcome to the Secrets for Success podcast. I'm your host, Greg Todd. Thank you as always for joining me. Today, I am doing a series that I'm calling Rapid Fire Value. It is my audience, people that I work with, and they bring so much value to the marketplace, to their areas. And so I have Gwen Claussen. Gwen is one of my amazing clients, mentees, friend that has a amazing business in Michigan called Flourishing Lives. And can you tell the people who you guys help? And then I'm just gonna spitball a bunch of questions at you. Is that cool?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who do you guys help?
We help kids and families that are struggling with sensory processing difficulties. So we help them understand their child better and connect better so that life can become easier and things are better for everyone.
And you help, you guys work with a lot of people. Like how many clients do you guys typically work with a week?
We're around like 320-ish visits a week. And usually it's like we see everyone twice a week.
Twice a week. So you're probably seeing like 150 to 180 people. It's pretty wild. So here's the first question. This is not one of my rapid fire questions, but I feel like there's been a huge change. Maybe I don't understand it because I wasn't a parent, but don't you feel like, I feel like kids are struggling more with sensory issues over the last 10 to 15 years. I don't know if it's the food, it's this, that, but have you noticed that there's just been a massive influx in children that are struggling with these things?
I do think it's more prevalent now, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that.
Do tell. Do tell.
Like what you said, like food, like the world has changed, the things change. And I think parenting has changed a lot. We're easier on kids now. And so like they're allowed to be more of themselves, and those things can like show more than they probably could have in the past.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There's also been a significant difference for all kids since like the COVID lockdowns and like all the screen time and everything like that. So like the socialization aspect was harder.
Gotcha. Of those things, is there one in particular, like, do you believe screen time has been is that the biggest reason or no? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have a stance on anything in particular.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm just noticing, and I don't know if it's because I work with you guys or what, but I'm just like, wow. Yeah, they could use help. They could be some help. And even in my family, I'm like, okay, yeah. I'm seeing things now as I'm learning more and more from you guys. Okay. So let's talk about some of the things that I'm assuming your audience would have questions on. Is that cool if I just spitball them at you? Okay. Meltdowns. There's like when I was growing up, you here was the cause of meltdowns. You're rude and you don't know how to act. Okay, and spank the child. Okay, can you explain what are some of the causes of sensory meltdowns?
So there's a lot of causes, but in general, it's that like there's just too much input to the body that's not getting processed properly, and then you just can't handle it anymore.
Right.
So we like to use like the analogy of like when you have a migraine and like or a really bad headache, it changes the way you perceive things. Like sounds are louder.
Yeah.
Light is a lot brighter. Things are harder. Like you can't figure out things as easily.
And that's what they're feeling.
So yeah, like the stuff within their body is acting differently. And so their brain's not processing correctly all of the inputs. And then it comes out usually in kids of crying, defiance, all those types of things.
Okay, so they're just not bad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on. Okay. I know I've heard you talk about creating a calming environment. So what are some ways that parents that are listening to this can create a calming environment in the home? And even if they're not in the home, they know that their kid is in school. Like, what are strategies? Are there things that they can do?
So like a calming environment for all the time or at times of like meltdowns?
Yeah, at time of like meltdown.
Yeah. So we like to use what we call the womb space. So in times of dysregulation, you try to go into a smaller area, which at home could be a bedroom, even like a walk-in closet, something like that, where you can build like a blanket fort or something like that to get into a smaller space so it's not so overwhelming. Turning the lights off, having soft stuffed animals or things to play with, like calm music, things like that.
Okay. That's good to know. So give me some ideas of how I can know that whether it's my son or other people, that they're in a very sensory overwhelming environment. Are there certain things I could be looking for as a parent? Like, oh, that's what they're dealing with right now.
So me personally, in general, I like to think that behavior is communication in all aspects. So whenever, even I use this with my staff too, when people are acting in a way that you don't think is normal or they shouldn't be acting, I like to look for what could be causing that first, rather than just assuming that they don't want to do what they're supposed to do. So a lot of times it's even like the regular things that you want your kids to do on the day-to-day can be really hard for them and overwhelming. And we've talked about this before, like the putting your shoes on to go out the door to go to school.
Right.
That seems
It's not easy.
That seems so easy
Right.
for us. But for kids, it's a lot of steps. So they first, where are their shoes? What shoes do they want to wear? Did they already have their socks on? Like maybe their sock is uncomfortable, and then the thought of putting it into a shoe is even worse. Are they good at tying their shoes? Like, what's going on? They could be thinking, what's going on later that day? Is there a concern about what's going to happen if their shoe comes untied later? Like, all those things go into them looking like they're just not listening to you. So when you try to think about what they're actually going through, it makes it a lot easier to solve the problem and maybe offer them a little bit more help.
Okay. Here's a big one. How do I explain sensory processing challenges to family and friends? Like them not getting it and thinking that my kid is just bad. Is there any things you would say with that?
So I think you can use that migraine example because headaches, most people have experienced that and can understand that.
Okay.
Wow, yeah, you're right. Sometimes I don't have control over my ability to do things as I normally would when I'm a headache. So that can help. I also personally take the stance of my kids come first, and I really don't care what anyone else has to say about it.
I could see it with you. Okay. All right. So here's another question for you. In public places, I realize that sometimes the kids get super overstimulated. So how can I navigate that a bit better? Like, for instance, going to a basketball game, right? Whereas for me, it's like, oh, that's cool. Like, I didn't realize how crazy that is for my son. So how can we navigate public spaces better with our kids?
So one of the things that when my oldest was little and I was struggling with all of these things, I was complaining to someone that we couldn't even go out to dinner. And they were like, well, why do you need to go out to dinner? Like, does he need to be going out to dinner if he's that miserable doing it? And I'm like, oh. That's a good point. So I do think, like, obviously you need to be able to do a lot of things with your kids, and sometimes they don't want to do it. But I overall, like, that conversation changed my perspective on things, and I stopped forcing my kids to do things that I wanted to do.
Gotcha.
That really wasn't benefiting for them, and that I knew was going to be hard on them. But when they do have to do things, I try to be prepared. So, I mean, all kids are different on what's going to set them off or going to be harder for them. So you might want to tell them in advance or not tell them in advance, depending on it. If you're doing something very loud and you know that's going to be a trigger for them, you can bring, like, if they like the noise canceling headphones or even.
That's what we did.
Yeah. Or even regular headphones, and they can listen to something else that they actually like, or like just bringing something, their favorite thing, or just something to help them get through it.
If we are having a meltdown, are there any communication tips you would give me if, like, that happens again?
The best thing you can do with everyone that's having a meltdown is to not talk to them too much.
Okay, gotcha.
And
communication tip is shut up.
Yeah. As sharing space with them, making them feel comfortable, letting them know that you're there with them, you can help them. If they're overwhelmed because of the noise, trying to get to somewhere quieter. Like, even at the basketball game, sometimes if you go into the bathroom, it's quieter in there, so they can regroup for a second. You can come up with a game plan.
Gotcha.
Things like that.
Okay. I think a lot of parents feel guilty when we don't understand what it is that our child is needing at the moment. Have you felt that?
Oh, yeah.
What, maybe not what you tell yourself, but what would you tell a parent? It's like, I feel guilt sometimes not feeling like I can meet the needs of my child because I just don't understand. I don't know if there's something you tell parents at the clinic.
Yeah. I think first, feeling guilty means that you're already doing a great job as a parent. And I think just reminding yourself that you are doing a good job. One of the things I would tell myself too, back when things were really hard, was like, he's having a hard time not giving me a hard time. So that way, like, just reframing it a little bit, which also gave me more space to think and try to figure out what the hard time was caused by. And sometimes you're not going to get it, and you're going to get it wrong, and you're going to make it worse, and it's going to be hard, but you'll figure it out, and it will get easier.
Okay. With all the clients that you guys are seeing at Flourishing Lives, are there any particular tools that you frequently recommend for helping with sensory overload?
Yeah, so there's some things that are really calming activities. Things to have on hand are like suckers. Oral motor is a good way to calm the nervous system. So suckers, bubble gum, blowing bubbles, things like that are good. Or like blowing through a straw or sucking through a straw.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay. So there are people out there. I know you guys see a lot of people. So you see anywhere between 160, 180 clients at your place a week. But I'm assuming there's a hell of a lot more parents that know they need help, but they just can't afford going to a traditional like setup like what you have. Are there other affordable ways for people to at least get some type of help? Like anything you'd recommend to somebody that's like, hey, I got no insurance, I can't afford it yet. Like, what would you tell them?
Let's say a lot of the kids that come to us, they really need a lot of input to their bodies. So something easy to do at home is have a place that they can like jump and crash. It can be like a pile of pillows, things you have on hand. They make different like foam things that aren't too expensive that you can, or even couch cushions. Things like that, and things like riding a bike or just swinging at the park are all really helpful. And so if you can do that more, it's not going to fix everything, but it's definitely going to help a little bit, at least get some of that energy out.
So there was something that you said earlier, like, my kid doesn't have to do everything I do. Okay, I don't need to take them to every concert or this or that or whatever. But we do want our kids to engage in like a lot of activities. Are there things I can do to help my child? And I know I'm saying me, but for everyone that's listening, that we could help our child if we're trying to get them to be able to engage in more daily activities. Any tips and tricks for that?
I think one of the best things to do is to have them around their peers, which is why at our clinic we share gym space and encourage the social interaction, because that just helps a lot more than if you're trying to do things just like kids you adult or just alone.
So when you guys do that, it's multiple patients at the same time, all in a gym area, and one therapist is working with this one, and they're all together. Oh, how did it? Okay.
A little chaotic at times, but but that's how you see the most progress. So if you're having them in activities where finding something that they like that meets their needs, but where they're also around other kids is helpful.
Okay. Now, I know you are creating a new community, a support community. So I would like to ask you, why do you feel like that has been so important? Why create that? What was your reasoning behind it?
For a few different reasons. Like one of them is it is lonely, and you do start to feel bad about yourself and wonder if you're doing the right things or everything that you can. So creating a community of parents with similar struggles so that they can have each other to lean on. And it's also so we can provide more support to more people. So the community will have like an online library with resources, but also some like weekly meetings that people can come into and get support from our therapists and also from other parents.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Let's talk about school. A lot of the kids that you guys are seeing are in school and they're struggling. As a parent, I want to see my kid win. I want to see them win in their environment. I want to see them win at life. And I want them to be comfortable. So what things would you tell us as parents? What can we do to be an advocate for our kids as they're trying to navigate through that whole school thing?
First, you set them up for success. So how we talked about the shoe thing, like make their mornings easier. Okay. So that when they do go to school, they're already in a good spot.
Right.
Okay. And a lot of times I would have my son ride his bike before school every day. Like no matter if he didn't do whatever he needed to do at home, because it was getting him what he needed so that he could have a good day at school. The other thing is working with the teachers, letting them know in advance some of the problems that you're having, some things that work at home.
Right.
That you already know of. And a lot of teachers now are really good at this stuff. Yep. Like they have their own tricks. They can get through it. But you can always request extra services at school or evaluations and things if the problem continues.
So we just have to share with them and find there's a lot of resources that like a lot of times we won't necessarily know, but you got to just ask.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. You talked about the community earlier, and I know you're creating kind of a community around parents feeling isolated. A lot of parents are feeling frustrated. Okay. Your community's not ready yet, at least at the time of this recording. It should be hopefully in a couple of weeks. What would you say to that parent right now that's listening that feels frustrated? They feel alone. They feel isolated. Give me some Gwen wisdom for them.
Oh, gosh. I would say, speaking from experience, my personal experience, I've been there. I felt terrible. I've been through some of the worst things possible, but it does get better. And I do have the tendency to like keep things in and shut down and handle everything on my own.
Yeah.
But I have found like a good community here and like within our professional environment, and it does matter. And so that's why I do want to have that community to give it to everyone else, because it makes it a lot easier to know that you're not going through things alone, and also to like see other people's tips and tricks and what's worked for them.
Right.
what hasn't worked for them, and it makes the learning process a lot faster.
I love it. Couple other things. So I want to feel more empowered. I want to feel more confident in supporting my child. You talked about some ways I can do it for them in school, which is just finding out the resources, right? For them. We talked about ways that we can do this like in public. What are other ways that I'm missing? Like that I haven't even thought of ways, like other areas where I can feel like I'm empowering my kid besides school and other places. Is there anything else that I missed?
I think, I don't really know if there's anything else, but one thing I would add is that talking to your kids and treating them as you would treat an adult. So like acknowledging that they have feelings and they have emotions, and it's okay for them to not like things or to be having a hard time with things. Like the more you validate them as people, the better your relationship will be, and the more open and willing to talk to you and work through things they'll be.
Okay. So as you were saying that, I was thinking, where I was kind of going with that. It's like, it's in the house. It's in the house. So you got one child that's struggling with these sensory issues and meltdowns and whatnot. And then you have one or two others that aren't. And it's trying to like manage that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I want to support you, but I also want like things to be okay over here. Help.
That's like one of the hardest parts, especially as a parent when you're trying to, because you want the best for all your kids and you want them to be happy and healthy and thriving and having everything you ever dreamed of. And when one is struggling more than the others, it is hard. But hopefully you have good communication with all of them and are like celebrating the good times, taking advantage of those, and then just like checking in with everyone after the bad times and repairing.
For those of you that are listening, I hope you realize that over the last 15, 20 minutes, you've gotten a lot of value on things that you can do like right now. Because I'm listening, I'm like, I can do that right now. Okay, now let's talk about if we were to go see someone like what you offer at your company or any pediatric OT, I should say any, but people that specialize in what it is that you do. What in particular would you tell someone that doesn't live in St. Clair Shores and they need to find someone that's good like y'all? What are some of the things they should be looking for in a therapist if they are going to go on this journey of having someone, a professional, help them?
I think one of the things we do different is that it's child-led therapy, therapist-guided. So we have our clinic. It's open. The kids can go wherever they want to, do whatever they want to safely.
Gotcha.
The therapist goes with them.
Right.
And then they will modify slightly whatever the child is trying to do to meet their goals.
So that'd be called like a self-guided clinic? Is there a name for it, or is that just something you guys came up with?
There's other clinics that do it. So child-led.
Child-led.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And so it's less of you need to do this 5 times. Like, in general, like rehab, PT, it's you got to do your reps. You got to do whatever. We don't do that. It's fun. It's play-based. So the kids just think they're having the best time, but the therapists are actually very skillfully adjusting their environment to work towards their therapy goals.
Okay, awesome. So now, whether they're coming to a facility like yours or even the stuff that you just shared with us, how do I know things are getting better?
See it.
You see it? Yeah?
It depends on what you're going for, like what your goals are when you're going in, what the problems are, and what they're actually working on. Yeah. So we do, like, decreasing meltdowns is always one of our goals. Like, just all the socialization, the things, the real issues that are bothering parents. We're also working on like coordination, fine motor, gross motor skills. But those real like social problems is what we're working towards. And so typically our families notice significant difference within the first few visits. Like life starts to get a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And then at some points you'll notice something else that's hard, and like it changes, and kids are growing and changing. So like it's always going to be different, but you should be able to notice improvement in things.
I'm a data guy, and I like to like write stuff down in my little planner. Do you think we should like, as parents, we should like write down, okay, amount of meltdowns this week, this, then next week? Like, is that one way, or is that like, am I being way too anal with this?
I mean, maybe a little, but it is good, because when you're a parent and you're like stuck in the hard part, it's sometimes difficult to see that you have, like, things have gotten easier, to realize like, oh my gosh, we made it out the door to go to school with no one crying. Like, that is a huge accomplishment. And then like at first you're going to think like, oh, it was just one time, like it's a fluke, whatever. But then the more times it starts to happen, like your life is now changed a little bit for the better, and then you'll keep seeing more and more of those things.
Okay. Can I ask you 2 more questions?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, self-soothing. How can I teach myself self-soothing techniques for, I guess, like sensory overload? What are soothing things? You said one of them were like put them in a small room, right, with lights off and whatnot. Are there any other like self-soothing hacks out there?
So it depends on what works for them and what you find. But I think like once you figure that out, the more you assist them with those things, the more they'll start to do that on their own when they, and like, there are some programs to help, the one's called like, How Does Your Engine Run? It helps teach kids to like recognize when they're becoming dysregulated.
How does your engine run?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a program or a book?
It's a program, and
okay.
I think it's a book too.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. All right. So here's my last thing for you. Advice. What advice do you have for us as parents to stay hopeful and resilient as we're going through this journey? You've been through it. What advice do you have for us?
Just to like be easy on yourself. Like everything's hard when you're doing it, but once you can look back, like maybe write stuff down, like you were saying, so that you can see like that the effort you're putting in, the worry that you've had, like that things are starting to get better, and that like you are doing a good job. So just remembering that every little bit you're doing is actually helping and making a difference in their lives.
Awesome. Okay. Sorry. I give her, you gave me all this advice today, so thank you so much. And I'm sure all the other parents thank you as well. You guys should create a tracker. You guys should create that.
Yeah.
Maybe we could team up on it or something like that. The tracker, like a meltdown tracker or something like that. I don't know what we want to call it. Oh my God, it'd be so cool. Okay. Anyways, what I'm going to do below is you're creating your community. And I think probably at the time that this is live, it will be live. So what I'm going to do is wherever you guys are watching this or listening to this, there's probably a description section. Look below. And I want to say this before I end the podcast. I've gone to Gwen's facility and I've seen what she has fostered, what she has built. I know her personally, and you might not know me, but I can tell you this. I can totally vouch for her on how passionate she is for wanting parents to get through this. And so if there was going to be a community that I was going to join with regards to this is the one that I would be a part of. And if I lived in, say, Clair Shores, Michigan, I'd actually use you guys because you have an amazing staff, amazing team, and you're an amazing, amazing leader. So thank you for being on the podcast. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
That was easy.